It was a very constructive week on the stock market last week. I am going to start with the Nasdaq. Welcome to my weekly review. You say, why was it so constructive, Marty? Well, last week's video, I'd mentioned that it's kind of start time to, nibble a little bit here. There was a lot of fear in the market and it was starting to wash out. And we got exactly what we needed on Monday. A nice little washout here. It made a new low of 18,831, and the correction or the backing and filling or the digestion or whatever you want to call it from the peak of 20,204 to the trough on Monday, which was 18,831. That's like a 7% correction, which is, garden variety. You got to expect those from time to time. And those like choppy downward action, backing and filling, those usually give us an opportunity to get in, and you get some nice charts as stocks are, form bases and start to break out as we move higher. So I'm going to show you a bunch of charts here that look pretty good due to this choppy action here. So we made a low on Monday, came in Tuesday. We had a down day, but it made a higher high of 19,273 and then pulled back into the close, closing to the in middle of its daily range. We made a higher low, higher high. Same thing on Wednesday, really gapped higher, 2.45% gain. Made a high of 19,548. So you got a higher low and a higher high. And even though it was down on Thursday and it felt bad, still made a higher high, 19,579, and a higher low, 19,335. Then on Friday, we had a nice day, up 1.51%, kind of like a follow through action. Higher high, higher low all week long. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that is what I call, constructive action, bullish, NASDAQ for the week. This is a weekly review. The NASDAQ was up 2.45%, made that washout bottom, closed near the high of the weekly range. I would, love to see it get above the high from 2 weeks ago, which was 20,007. So it's got some work to do that, but one thing at a time. Let's, get above. How about last week's high of 19,709? That would be a good start. It has to do that before it takes out the 20,000 level. Okay, so that's it for the NASDAQ. I want to go to the SPY because the SPY had a constructive week as well. It closed this gap here from the election day of November 5 of 576.74. It did that on Monday, that washout Monday, which I think is a low, short-term low. And if it trades below that, we're in a lot of trouble. So, we'll be out of everything by then. But it came down on Monday, 575.35, which is lower than 576.74, at least, when I do the math, unless there's some new math that I don't know about. But anyway, made that low, made a higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low all week and closed here above its 50, 0.4% above its 50. And sorry, I've got to go back now because I screwed up and didn't show you that the NASDAQ closed Friday above all of its moving averages, 1.1% below its 50. So it's, higher above the SPY above the 50, but the SPY is closer to its, it took out the prior week. It's a weekly review, so I got to show the weekly. It's very close to taking out the 2 weeks ago, the high 599.70. So that would be the benchmark for the SPY next week. And it came up to 599.36, but almost took out that high. And that's the job it needs to do next week is take out that high, trade above 6,000, or in this case, the SPY 600. All right, I'm going to go to the Dow Jones Industrial Average. This is kind of more of a same type of action where it washed out on Monday and then rallied up, still right there at its 50, just a tick below it. And then the IWM, not something that I pay attention to. I know there's a lot of bullish people who think this is going to be gangbusters. I'm not one of them. But this thing will drive you crazy. And then the RSP, which is equal weighted S&P 500, which kind of gives you the breadth. This thing's still below its 50, so not as strong as the SPY or the NASDAQ, but looking better, still has some work to do. And, in order to go through the 50, it's got to get up there, and it just, it can't get rejected here and start diving down. It needs to drive through there next week. All right. Let me see. That's it for the indexes. I trade stocks. You know that. I don't really trade indexes. I just look at them. It's so much easier to trade when you have the tailwinds from the indexes. And so you probably found it a little easier last week than the prior 4 or 5 weeks. I'm going to go through the Batman stocks, the perfunctory exercise of, these seven stocks that just moved the market. Broadcom is one of them. I thought this thing would really move, and it really didn't last week. It's just still, flagging here in this little pennant type pattern, pulled back to the 21. It needs to get some strength here. I thought with the Taiwan Semiconductor report, it would move, but it really didn't. I'm going to get to that in a minute as well. Marvell, another one of these semiconductor names. Excuse me, gosh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Apple. Apple's one of the Batman stocks. I want to get to the semiconductor. Batman, Apple's the second one in the Batman trade. A lot of people think that, it's over, the story's over. Zuckerberg comes out, said they haven't innovated, which is pretty rich for a guy who stole his idea from his, college dorm buddies. Apple is, you're always getting stories every day about how they're losing market share, and maybe it went up the mountain. Now it's going to go down the mountain. I don't know. You just got to wait to hear from Tim Cook and management on the 30th. And everybody's just blowing smoke until then. Tesla, one of the stronger names in the Batman stocks, like Broadcom, above its 21 here, rallied last week. That's a weekly review. I should be showing you the weekly charts. Yeah, bounced off its moving average. Um, Last week had a nice week up by 8%. We'll take that, won't we? And close at 78% of its weekly range. You can see there it bounced off that 10-week line, which is different from it came down to 380 and that 10-week line was 392. That's different from the 50-day. But anyway, moving along, Microsoft is a chart I have trouble looking at. Ugh. It did make that low like the index. It did rally through its moving averages. So we'll give it credit. On Friday, closed at 14% of its daily range. Once again, you got to wait till they report earnings here on the 29th. Earnings, we got big earnings this week, Netflix and a bunch of others. And then the following week, Microsoft and Apple. And that'll kind of tell us where we're at. Meta looks good out of these Batman stocks. It's just kind of tied to the TikTok news. The Supreme Court ruled TikTok is out of commission, but we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, this is kind of pinching in nicely here around that 600 level. So look for it to break out. Once again, you got to wait for the earnings. Earnings is what drives stock appreciation over quarter after quarter, year after year. So yeah, they're going to have to deliver the goods, and I think they will. They're laying off people and getting a little more leaner and meaner. All right, got to go to the A trade, the Amazons and the Alphabets. Amazon looks pretty good, almost pulled back to its 50 here. And this is what that choppy type of market's going to do for us, right? It's kind of giving us some bases in some of these stocks here. Google, definitely forming this little shelf type pattern, if you will, a little Darvis box. Got to give it above the 201.42. But that one looks pretty good as well, up 2% last week, while the Nasdaq was up. Gosh, I didn't show you. I'm losing it. I'm slipping. It was up 2.45%. So you got to expect your growth stocks to be up, 2.45. It should be up, 3 to 5% or more, if you got leading stocks. All right. And then the last one in this group is NVIDIA. NVIDIA last week up 1.32%. You can see this is just going sideways. Tried to make that move higher after earnings, just went sideways. Yeah, not doing a whole lot there, just kind of a base on base pattern or a base with elongated handle. Below the 50, NVIDIA is kind of tough right here. All right, I was going to get to I showed you Broadcom and NVIDIA. I've got to go to some of the semiconductor names since I'm talking about NVIDIA. And this is one that I like more than NVIDIA's Marvell. I like a couple stocks in the semiconductor space, a little more than NVIDIA. This is one of them. This has got 107 billion market cap. This is no small company. Up last week, had that washout on Monday, but it was still up, every day last week. Had a nice week up by 9%. So nice day, week for Marvell. Another one is ARM, is another one of these names that I like the looks of this base here as it makes this cup with elongated handle. Yeah, I would like to see ARM get above that 156.40 here. Maybe it'll do it this week. So semiconductors looking a little better. Somebody asked me about Rambus. Are they on Rambus? Yeah, just kind of coming out of this stage one base here on Friday. So that was a nice move. Looks like a good week for Rambus. 10%. Yes, I think that's a good week any week. All right, that's enough for those stocks. I got to get to some of the earnings reports last week because earnings, like I said, is what drives your stock prices higher. You can have all the fancy charts you want, but if you don't have sales and earnings growth, your stock is not going to appreciate over time. You can see the blue dot here, which shows, the relative strength uh, trading higher through that pivot point of 138.24 with volume. That's straight off the lows. And I like to see the financials. There's a lot of rotation going on in this market, which is healthy for a longer term bull market. And we're seeing that with the financials here. Nice base, the choppy month of December and beginning of January formed this little base here, and now it popped nicely. Goldman Sachs as well, popping out of that base. It's got that blue dot. JP Morgan. I'm going through these quickly. Wells Fargo. I don't own any of these, but you could see the reaction here to the earnings reports. And to me, this is a real positive, breaking above the downtrend line within the base there. So a lot of the financial news had strong reactions to good news, so we like that. On the other hand, we had United Health, which reported in just kind of, I wouldn't say crash, but it had a negative reaction to negative news. And then on the brighter side, we had Taiwan Semiconductor with a killer report, just, not a real great response here. I was expecting more there on Thursday following that report. I know the market was weak on Thursday. Still up nearly 4%, and then Friday gives some back. So maybe it'll fill that gap there. And then the slob on Friday reported nice response here, and it got rejected at that 200, closed at 68% of the daily range there, but still a nice move of 6%. And the slob's trying to break out of this long trending downtrend. All right, I'm going to get to my groups because I like my groups. I'm going to start with energy. It's one of the top stocks, and the top group is GE Vernova. Have to go over this one because while the Nasdaq and the indexes were going down and chopping, and I mentioned that 7% correction, which allowed for a nice little base here in GEV. I had this on the ready list. It pulled back to the 10 and really popped last week nicely. They have earnings on Wednesday, the 22nd. So we're going to hear from GEV this week. There you can see the base. 2 weeks ago, popped out of it. Then last week followed through with a 9% move. So that's back-to-back weeks of really nice moves for GEV. BST was up last week, 2.5%. You can see it's still kind of within this base here. It had that 3 weeks tight and just sold off and just formed a base. And like I say, these the chop fest or the correction or the digestion of gains or the backing and filling that we saw in the index, whatever you want to call it, is giving us many, many, many nice looking charts like this. I'm not going to show you all of them, but there's a ton of them that I have to choose from so I can form my ready list for Monday morning. But there are a lot of them. Now, VST had a fire. There was the largest lithium battery plant in the country there at Moss Landing in California. I used to drive by Moss Landing every day as I went to work building the Monterey Bay Aquarium. It was kind of a dead town. And since they revived it, I think they bought it from PG&E. It's really been a hustling, bustling place. But the fire was in a storage facility. It was a significant event because it's California and there's going to be they have a lot of regulations there. And so they're going to have an investigation and could slap some regulations on Vistra. So they're not out of the woods here. I'm looking for a statement from the CEO. There was a representation from Vistra that just said they were sorry to the community, but they're going to need a little more than that. I was encouraged that it was only down, less than 2% on that news. And so when you have a stock with negative news, and that's a pretty bad story right there, and it only goes down 2%, that kind of tells you something. And it was up for the week. So investors like Vistra, only 4% off its 52-week high. Between GEV and Vistra, I don't know which one to own, so I own both, but I'm thinking GEV is probably the stronger stock. But I don't know. I mean, they're both really strong. And anyway, like I said, I used to go by Moss Landing all the time. My superintendent there was Sven Hasselberg, as we built the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and he was one of the greatest bosses you could ever have. Great mentor in my youth. And good times there. We'd go to Monterey Bay Aquarium in the morning as we built it and put our fishing lines out in the bay there and come back at break and see if we had a fish on the line. We'd catch our fish during work. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, VST and then CEG. CEG looks a little better here as it broke out of this base and then pulled back one day and then rallied up 4 consecutive days. This is one of the top performing stocks in 2025 so far, so don't want to ignore that 20%, 21% move 2 weeks ago, and then nearly a 4% move last week. Really liking CEG, so it's hard to select from these energy names, but I'm going to move on because I gotta, this is a long weekly review, and I've got to get to my oil names. I like the oil stocks ever since, Billy Bob and Landman. I'm an oil man. No, I'm just kidding. I'm a front runner. I just like anything that's trading higher. As a trend trader, everybody has their own style. I know people who just day trade every day options, and that's all they do. And at the end of the day, they're all cash. They don't hold anything overnight. They just trade options during the day, and that's fine. They're adrenaline junkies and they make a lot of money and they're very good at what they do. I also know people who just are passively, monitoring their investments, maybe every quarter look at their statement and make a couple of changes, but they're not trading a lot. Then swing traders like me, we just want to get the meat of the trade, maybe, 1, 2, 3 weeks and start taking some off. And this one's giving us a nice opportunity here. This is EQT, broke out of that base. Yeah, pulled back on Friday, but with oil now above 80, and these stocks are ramping. This is a natural gas play. Natural gas has been ripping too. So yeah, up 8% last week. 2 weeks ago, 4%. 3 weeks ago, 6%. This thing is just on an uptrend with some decent volume coming in last week. So EQT is one, KNTK is another one that I had on my ready list. But it's, getting a little extended here. Yeah, still actionable from that standard buy point, but we had it a little lower there, I believe. I don't know. I don't have my list in front of me, but definitely a strong stock. A WMB is another one that I have on the ready list, and it's starting to break out, but this one again is still actionable, a little more slower and pokey type of stock, but just pushing away from the base here. So the oil and gas plays they're looking fantastic to me. This is Kinder Morgan, which broke out, making new highs. This is a weekly report. So yeah, 7.5% move in the week. We'll take that. LNG, obviously, liquid natural gas, and transportation pipeline stock up 12% last week. Just nice breakout with volume here. Arch, Rock, ROCK, another one up 14%. Hello. I mean, these things are talking to me. RRC, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. They're just going higher. And I know they're extended here, Range Resources, but they kind of don't know you bought them, and they don't really care what you think. So I'm not saying dive in here, but just look around the oil patch, and there's a lot of stocks, that are just setting up in bases here. This is DT Midstream, oil transportation stock, natural gas. So these things are looking good to me. You want a little larger one? This ZOG, this is setting up in a bigger base here. Take a look at the weekly chart. Yeah, I mean, this thing's been going sideways for a long time, so it needs to giddy up. And then TRGP, this is another one that I like. Broke out recently. You can see the breakout there with the blue dot. And then, just above the standard buy point there of 209. So the oil patch is looking good. The energy stocks are looking good. And then I've got to go to the construction names because this is one of my, the financials are looking good. There's a lot of areas that are looking good right now. This is AGX, building heavy construction. You can see the group. Top 10 group, we got nice growth profile here. Just broke out of a base last week. There you can see the breakout and ramped 12%. Very nice move there. MTZ. This is Maz Tech, building heavy construction in that same group. Top 10 group. You can see it just broke out of a stage 2 base and just broke out. Still actionable there around the 150 level. This is not a real fast mover. You can see it's a little slower and pokier and a little tighter trading range, but still a quality stock. Quanta Services, which is one of my favorites in this group, broke above that downtrend line within the base, which I always like, last week, and then traded higher. You can see the blue volume bars coming in last week. Earnings not until the middle of February. Nice. It's almost 8% move last week. I think we'll all take 8% moves. PRIM, I think I put this one on the ready list last week. Broke above its downtrend line within the base last week. Yeah, pop tire up every day last week, even when the indexes were, giving you that herky jerky back and forth teeter totter. This thing was just trading higher. And the last one is STRL, another one that I like in here. I like too many of these. And anyway, this one got above its 50 on Friday. So I wanted to point that out. But strong group. This one had a nice week as well, up, nearly 12%. So, these things aren't going to wait for you. You got to get in on them before they start to do the giddy up. The train's leaving the station, as they say. All right, I got to go to some retail names. Not a lot. Retail's kind of hurting right now, but this is Cal-Maine. They reported, I think, last week. Yeah, might have been the week before, but anyway, nice move for the the shell eggs distributed in the Southeast. Yeah, then another egg stock is VITL. So these food stocks, double bottom base, broke out last week more than 12% with volume here. This is a really nice looking stock here out of Austin, Texas. Uh, Eggs, butter. Yeah, okay. All right, so I've got to get to some other retail names, more conventional retail. And this is on holdings. You can see it's just consolidating within a base. You could see the RS, blue dot line showing strength here. And what was I going to point out? Oh, when I look at stocks, I'm looking to buy stocks. I want obviously the to be consolidating in a base. I want it to be able to show the ability to move higher. This one has. I also want, some of these big guys on my side, like Will Danoff at Fidelity, and some of these other growth stocks, which have a history of, performing well. So On has that, and it broke above its downtrend line on Friday. I did not put this on the ready list because I'm a little hesitant on retail, but that looks like a nice move. And then the last one I want to show is Shark Ninja. Shark Ninja has a, the household appliance group setting up in this base here. You can see it broke above that downtrend line 2 weeks ago. Yeah, Shark Ninja looks like it wants to make that move. And this is what that choppy type of action we had is giving us. It's giving us a lot of bases here. So if you want to delve into retail, there are some opportunities. I like some of the software names here. Duolingo broke its downtrend line as well. They got a little bit of a boost from people leaving TikTok and going to Red Note, and they were doing their language learning on TikTok, and now a spike in subscribers in Duolingo. So that had a real positive week last week, yeah, up 10%. Spotify, another one in this computer software education group, still trading within a base, was up nearly 6% last week. You see that blue dot on the weekly, and this one looks good to me as well. So the choppy action, yeah, it sucked. Yeah, it was tough to make money, but man, it's providing us with some opportunities here. So we're going to take advantage of this. AppLovin obviously was forming this base here, made that high in early December. I want to say around December 6th that week, and you can see it's just consolidating in the base. Yeah, the week of December 6th and just consolidating within the base, but it's found support at its 10-week line here, the first trip to the 50 simple moving average. Since the breakout, it's usually a gift, and it proved to be true as it rallied back through its moving averages. This one is not one to be ignored, Dan. keep your eye on app 11 as it showed the ability to really motor. This is service now, undercut the 50, rallied back through it last week. So that one looks good. What other software names? Oh yeah. And I got to show a couple of these that just, forming bases here. This is a software, financial software named Vertex, VERX. I'm just loving the base here. Pegasus, this was one that I had on my Pega Systems on my ready list last week. Got to take it off. Little extended there, that software financial group, man, nice 9% move. You got that one. Congrats. And then what other one did I want to show? Oh, Wix, another software name. Uh, Software enterprise. It broke out of that base. So, flat, doing a flat base while the indexes were correcting. When the Nasdaq corrected 7%, it just kind of went sideways. Looks like a 6-week tight pattern there, and then just broke out, and you can see the blue dot there. All right. That's it for the software. So there's a lot of groups here and stocks that I like, but man, you cannot ignore crypto. We have the new administration coming in, a little more, positive on the crypto space and MicroStrategy is really, it's a software name. Okay, they changed it to financial services. Okay, this is really a Bitcoin play. And now it's above its moving averages, up, yeah, 21% last week. Thank you very much. I think this continues to rally. But the last I checked, Bitcoin was trading about 104. So that bodes well for a MicroStrategy. A couple other names in the crypto group is Coinbase. You could see that it rallied, undercut the 50, then rallied back above, had that kind of double bottom, triple bottom like the Nasdaq, and then Hood. The Hood got an upgrade last week and really popped. Yeah, look at that. Nice move for Hood last week. Man, just a lot of stocks looking good. That was up 20% as well. So if you're in MicroStrategy and Hood, you had a good week last week. And the last thing I'm going to get to is the boomer trade. I like that theme of the boomer trade. They're taking money out of their 401ks or taking distributions. If you have 5 million in your nest egg, you have to take out 150 grand a year required. So the boomers are just spending it, living their best life. And this is Viking had this downtrend break on Thursday. And I think I put this on my ready list Friday, but you can see that blue dot here indicating the strength there. And Viking had a nice week. You can see rally off the bottom as it undercut the 50 and rallied back through. Nice 9% move. Thank you, boomers. And then RCL is another one in this group. Undercut the 50, rallied through. And this is kind of what the correction is giving us, some nice bases. I'm seeing so many nice bases this weekend. It's going to be very hard to choose come Monday. Expedia, another one, these booking, the boomers got to book their trips, right? So they book them on Expedia, undercut the 50, rallied back through. Had a very nice week last week. And then TravelZoo, you're booking your stuff on TravelZoo, maybe. Leisure travel booking stock up 7% last week. And then, of course, the airlines, you got to fly, right? This is Alaska. Just consolidating here, the 67.73, an area of interest, just pulled back to the 21 and found support. United Airlines, this one reported the prior week, had a nice ramp up and just consolidating gains. That one looks good as well. So that's my boomer trade. Thank you for watching at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up, except for in honor of the great Steve Jobs. I have one more thing. I just want to point out that, I mentioned app 11 earlier, and you see these big moves after earnings reports, right? And earnings season's coming up, and we're going to see some stocks make big moves like this. Could even be app 11. But I also mentioned MicroStrategy. You want to bite into this breakout and these moves higher. And this is what some of the stuff we're going to see here. I'm sure of it as we approach earnings season. So I'm looking at some of the stocks I think have potential. And this one is Reddit. Now, Reddit didn't do a whole lot of correcting while the Nasdaq corrected 7%. This thing was just kind of consolidating in a base above moving averages. I think this one has the potential to be a real big winner. So I'm keeping my eye on Reddit. ALAB is another one. I don't like it as much as Reddit. Why? Well, because it undercut the 21, but now it's back above it. But still, this is definitely one to watch, showing the ability to move and it corrected a little more than Reddit during the Nasdaq correction. Another one that kind of looks like Reddit is Credo Tech Group. Obviously, made this little Darvish type box, if you will, pulled back to the 21, found support, and now broke above it. So yeah, Credo. Yeah, my drawing's not the best. It's okay. Uh, Credo had a nice week last week, and definitely one that I'm watching for next week. I think this one could definitely pop. Yeah, 8.5%. We'll take that every week. Thank you very much. Some other names that I'm watching, CLS. Now, what correction, right? Well, the Nasdaq was correcting. This thing's just making new highs. Ridiculous stock. So that one is definitely one to watch. CRS, I don't think it's going to make a parabolic move. It's a little more slower in poker. I just wanted to point it out that the Chop Fest in December and early January is just providing us with these nice bases. And I had that one on the ready list last week. That one looks good too. VRT is another one, just a little slower than these other ones that I mentioned. Don't think it's going to make a parabolic moves, but just showing you these bases that are setting up that I don't know which ones I want to decide to buy. And then a Waystar, while the Nasdaq was correcting, I know this is an IPO stock like the Reddit and the ALABs, but this one just pulled back to the 21, found support, making this little kind of Darvish box. So if it could break out above the 38 level, I'm happy to be in the WAY. And then the last one is SMTC, formed this base. And then that's SMTC, semiconductor name, formed the base, broke out of it. So it was consolidating. Well, we had that chop fest and now broke out last week, up 13.5%. So that's it for me. Just a lot of stuff to get to. I couldn't even, scratch the surface of what I really want to get to. No, just kidding. There's just a lot of stuff going on in the market. A lot of rotation, so you got to be on your game. You got to be vigilant, have an open mind, be flexible. Your best ability is flexibility. And I'll have a ready list posted at mcstockcharts.com on Monday morning. Thank you for watching. Never give up.